Hey guys, AJ here from AJ Jam Studios, and today we're going to do something that's a little off what we normally do. Today we're going to do a little remove and replace on one of the vehicles. We've had some troubles with, well, I think they might have made parts of the Kraton too strong. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the EXB, this is the 6S Kraton Extreme Bash, and what we're going to do here is we're going to pull it apart and we're going to show you what the problem is. Because the problem lies here. This is where our problem is. They made the wing mounts pretty strong. The problem is with the strong wing mounts, the rear end suffers. So let's get this thing on the bench. Oh, and by the way, if you guys are here to see bashing this time, there's not going to be any bashing in this one. This is simple repair and replace. We're going to show you how the tail of this thing comes apart. We're going to show you what makes it tick and how to put it back together so when you have this problem, you won't have this problem for long. So let's dig into this thing and let's get started. Okay guys, so we're going to pull this thing apart. Let's get this out of the way and let's get right after it. Good. Now, these wheels, they're plastic, so if you over tighten these a little too much, they have a real tendency to squish down and lock up. So you have to be kind of careful as you lock these things down. All right, let's go ahead and get the wing off. I like to keep everything in a small dish, so for the generic parts. There we go. All right, wings off. Looks like we're going to have to take the wheelie bar off. Now, everything's going to have to come off the shock tower anyway, so in order to get this down, I'm going to pull the whole shock tower apart, which includes the body mounts. These things are interchangeable, the body mounts are, but there's an offset to them. So as you look at this, there's an offset. It hangs out more on one side than the other. So it really pays to take a look at which side goes where, or your body's not going to fit. All right, so we need to flip this thing over and get that wheelie bar off. There we go. And you want to be really careful. You want to be really careful when you unthread from plastic. And the problem is when you unthread from plastic, if you spin them super fast, it burns out the plastic and then it no longer holds the way it wants to. So something to keep an eye on. Okay. We don't want to take the rear end off just yet, but we do have to get this block off the back. Pretty long screws in here too. Now keep in mind that this component here is a T-bone racing wheelie bar, and the amount of punishment this thing takes is crazy good. I mean, it takes tons of punishment, so it's very nice. Okay. And we're going to go after these components. There. Okay, there it is. Now, there's a difference between that one There's a difference between this one, which is the one that came out of it. It's interesting set. Now, look at the girth in these two pieces, okay? So this is a really heavy duty wing mount, and these are flexible. I mean, they're terribly flexible. Very nice. Take one of these, they don't bend nearly as easily. They're super strong, and I think that's their downfall. So let's continue. Now let's get you down here and have a look, see? Okay, so we had to break this down quite a ways. We need to get this loose here. That was a matter of taking this cover off. We've got the wing mount off. We've got the top brace, that's off. So that's an interesting little piece. I can get it to focus for you. The original wing mounts replaced with the RPM ones. We've got the shock tower off. We've got everything disconnected. It's about time to flip it over and undo the rest of this, and this whole situation will pop right off in our hands. Okay. From the back side here, you can see that this top and this top right here, these two components have completely snapped off. They're completely broken off. So that means that when the wing mount sits on it, or not just the wing mount, but when all of this sits in there, this is a little awkward. See the outline on here? This is what sits up against this piece. So in order to hold this on, you have a screw goes in there and a screw goes in here on both sides. And that's all that holds this piece on that piece. Now the problem being, when you get this situation going on, there's not a lot of plastic there. There's not a lot that's going to hold it in place. It's just kind of light. So when you introduce these, and these are hell for stout. I landed on this thing several times and they were hard, and these didn't break, this did, and that's not okay. So when you introduce the RPM ones, they're thin, they're flexible, the wing can move around, and that's all good. But this is what happens when you make the wing mounts too strong. So it looks like my rebuild, the rebuild I did held up good. I've got no shavings, there's no clatter. The gear spacing is still just right on that. I've thrown a lot of power in this and I've yet to cause damage to it, so that's a good thing. The case, unfortunately, is a wash, but the components inside are still good, so we can go ahead and rebuild that. So let's get on with that. Okay guys, this is where it gets a little goopy, and I highly recommend you use some rubber gloves for this, because this silicone lube that we use, it gets on everything. Oh. Okay. It does get on everything, so. There we go. Oh, there's one right there. All right. I got something to work over here. We need to take this thing apart. Let's get a look at the new one first. Just to make sure. And there's the part number, guys. And let's pull it apart and make sure that we have the same thing. So. I'm not too worried about speed on this one, simply because I'm not going to reuse this case. So if I burn it up a little bit, it gets burned up a little bit. So identical, nice. Get this out here. There we go. Not bad. Now we need to get this off. There we go. Grub screw out. Attach that. Nice. Beautiful. Visual inspection there. Everything looks good. Okay, I need something to press this out. So let's use this one. Nice. There we go. Both of them are out. I really like this lube. It's messy, but worth it, because it really does a good job. Okay, the new one has all the metal braces in it. Very nice. Okay. Nice. So let's go ahead and install these. The new one. Go. Popped right in, no problems. Change up a little bit. There we go. Nice. So we're going to install the pinion. It goes right through there. So that allows the pinion to sit right there. It's all timed, no problems. Put the cup back on it. Now there's a flat spot. There's a flat spot right here. We want to make sure and line this up with it. Like so. Grab that grub screw. man, that lube works good. Okay, so now that's in there good. No problems. Spins easily. Everything's looking good in that one. We're going to set this aside, and now we're going to install this. Just to, you know, there's virtually no dirt on the interior of this thing. I'm going to rub down anyway. Get anything off of it might be a problem. There's a shim right here, and you have to be real careful sliding that in there. So you got to kind of line that shim up first. Get it in that hole. Now it's lined up. And get this side to work and bring it in together. Like that. Now it works. The shim holds it nice and tight. There's no slop at all. Everything sits real solid in there. Real good. No movement. That will give you positive control over the differential. And yeah, once we lock this down, it's going to be ready to go. Take this component and install it. There's rails here. So you've got groove rails right here that line up in these. So you've got to get them lined up properly. There we go. Closed and closed. So just be patient, guys. You can get this thing together. It just takes the patience to get it down. So now, yeah, I've got to look at it. Best we can. Let's get some light down here for you. You can see that it's up tight. And we're nice and tight. I didn't have to pry on it. I just had to struggle around and get it lined up. So now that it's together, we can put these screws back in it. There we go. And always take the time to tighten all of these by hand. Don't run them down with the machine. It'll burn through the plastic and destroy them. You want to make sure you run them down by hand. And I like to cross tighten. It makes things go in evenly. If you go 1, 2, 3, 4, you can bind it. If you go 1, 2, 3, 4, then you can get it down nice and flat, and it shouldn't bind at all. So that being done, so listen, nice and smooth, no binding, beautiful. So let's line this up. And we're going to put this on first. Now when you install this, you want to make sure, put this on, that you get the little square nub right here at the bottom, because that goes down through the chassis and holds this alignment. So you want to make sure and get that in the proper position. And even though this will go fast, take it nice and slow so you don't burn through the threads, because you only get one shot at this, and then you're putting a new part in. Like so. Tighten them up. Nice. Good. And, you know, good and snug will do. You don't have to get crazy about it. So now that we've got this set going, I'm going to change around. Give this little move. It'll allow us to put that little piece go. This won't work. Goes right there. Gotta line these little screws here up. Nice. There we go. Okay, so this little plate that we just put on here allows the sway bar to sit in there. It sits in there kind of loose, but it sits in there okay. And we'll get after that in a second. That will go right on there. Like so. There we go. There's a little pin right in here, and that's got to line up with this brace here. So if you don't get the pin lined up, it won't want to go together. And the difference in this one is I've got this external block that I have to put on here to hold this one on. This will snap right back on there. There we go. There. Now we've got that together. You can take a look at this, and you can see what we've got put together so far. We've got the suspension reconnected, we've got the keepers tightened up really nice, and we're ready to start putting the shock towers and things back on it. So we could mount this in the car right now and then install this after, but I'm really kind of curious to see how this is going to sit in there. So let's have a look at this. This should go in this way, like so. And it's these two screws. All right. Turn this back up. There we go. Okay. Go. So that went together really nicely. We just tighten these down, hold them in place. That will keep these pins right here from pulling out. These little keepers hold it right in there. Now we've got our suspension back up. Now these are different than the center one. The center one, come up, it has the same size ball on each end. The drive shafts for the outdrives have a large ball here and a small ball there. The large ball fits right into the outdrive, the smaller ball fits right in there. No problems. So if we're going to put this together, we're going to go ahead and roll this over, get this lined up. There we go. Nice. Swing this over. It's going to go right back in the same hole it was in, which is on this car, it was the inside bottom, like so. Like that. Get the washer in place and start your nut. Just tighten this one in by hand. Nice and snug, don't overdo it. Round 2. Do the same thing here. We'll fish this one into here. Like this. Bring this around and bang, just like that. Beautiful. Okay, so now we have a fully functioning suspension system ready to go back on the car. Now, I do have a little grease still on that, so I'm going to clean that off, and we're going to go ahead and put some fresh lube in that before we attach it. I've got a better rag for that. Little test fit here. Make sure everything's good. Everything is. It sits well. Drive shaft handy. Let's get some lube in this thing. And I just use your basic white lithium lube. That's all I use. It's nothing too special, but it works good. Nice and smooth, no problems. Everything rolls good, so we're good there. Drive shaft. Okay, so you line those little fobs up. Got one here and one there. That'll let you know your alignment's good. Start your back two, because these ones with the wheelie bar are unused. Get one just to hold it in place. Don't quite have the grip that I had before, but there it is. Nice. So now this is all in. We can get our top brace on there, which is this one, and this will hold that top bar when we put it on. being done. Now we can back this one out, which this is the small screw here that holds the bar. Nice. Okay, so we're looking good at that point. Okay, so we've developed a problem, and it's a simple fix really, and I'm glad it happened because it'll allow me to show you how to correct it. Now, what we've got here on the EXB, if you look at the chassis, there's no lump here, okay? On the inside, it's milled in 2 positions, not just one. If you look at the typical version 4 style chassis, this is a Typhon, but it's the same on both cars. It's got the lump on one side, dictating that you have to have the differential on that side. It prevents you from putting it in backwards. On the EXB, however, you can definitely put it in backwards, which I did, which means when you spin the front wheels frontwards, the back wheels spin backwards because the drive lines don't run them in the same direction. So in this portion of the video, we're going to go ahead and show you how to flip that around and put it in correctly. First, we're going to pull out this screw, that screw, and that screw, and that will loosen the housing cap so that we can get the differential out. Also, the sway bar here is connected on both ends, and we'll pop that out. Okay, now since we're going to get into the pumpkin area, we got to put the gloves back on. That new lube I put in there sticks to everything. It's a really good product, so it always pays to be careful. You'll get it on all your tools, you'll get it all over everything. It gets on everything. So we'll get our gloves on here. There we go. And we'll take this thing apart. Okay, now before I pull this thing apart, take a look at the drive unit here. As I roll this forward, that one goes backwards, so the pumpkin's in backwards. So we're just simply going to take this apart, and of course this is on a slide, it should come straight out. There we go. And you can see that it fits easily in on the right hand side. If you're looking at it from the back of the vehicle, it's on the right hand side. This is backwards, so we're going to pull it out and flip it around. There we go. Now as long as you hold these drive lines out, it pulls straight out of the rig, just like that. And now it's out. So now you have this, you can just turn it around and put it back in the car that way. The trick here is to make sure that your drive lines are lined up properly when you insert them. So get one out there, get one there, get it started, hold the shim in place so that it sits in the right spot. So line those up. There we go, lined up. Lined up. Now it should slide right back down in the car. Gross. Okay, so I need to get rid of that. See how it gets everywhere? It gets on everything. Okay, so we got to slide this back out. It'd be easier to do this if you drop the out drives, but you don't have to get this done. As long as you line up your shim, get it in first. Everything goes right back in as it should. Now it's sitting in there properly, and everything now turns, watch this, everything turns the right direction. So as you look at this, down in the chassis there's a slot for right hand and left hand. It doesn't make sense to me why they did it, but they did a nice job on the milling. still, you want to make sure that the drive line drives both of them the same direction. Now, we're simply going to reinstall the cap. Make sure that you fish these through the arms first, because they'll hit. You'll have to take things apart if you don't. Line things up so that they slide in like they should. And there you go. I've mentioned this before, but just make sure that you run them in slow on the screws. Run them in nice and slow so you don't overheat the plastic, and turn them in by hand at the end to get them down snug evenly. If you run them in fast, you tend to destroy the housing, and that's when you wind up having to take it all apart and put all new parts in it again. So nice and slow. These automatic tools are nice, they work really well, but at the end of the day they can destroy what you're trying to do, so you have to be real careful with them. So now that they're in there, put this one down snug, cross pattern, just so you get it in evenly, nice and snug. There you go. It may look like I'm pushing hard, but I'm not. I'm just getting it down till you can feel it grab the plastic. Give it just a little bit more, and that's it. So now, simply reconnect your sway bar. Like so. You get down in here, get this one connected. Oh, careful. Lined up, snap it back on, and it snaps on pretty easy. So there we have it. Now the rear end's back together, and it all works in the proper direction. Looks like we're ready to go after the wing mounts. Now the standard wing mounts, they come with this. They go through here, like so. I believe that's this one. Nope, it's this one. So this would sit here, like that, and it bolts through the bottom. The problem being with this is it's so rigid that it yanks the whole top apart. These, on the other hand, they're flexible, pliable in every way, so if you do hook onto this, it'll bend these, but it won't bend this stuff. So I want to fish these through. These sit down in there like so. And that allows you to get everything lined up the way you need it to. So I've got two long screws here that go through the back. There we go. Okay. These are good. Tighten those down. Good. Good. Now this will hold this, but now it's got movement. It's not so cut and dried to where it either has to break things or it doesn't. So that's good. Nut that goes in the back side here. There we go. Some fishes through there. So now this is nice and tight. We just need to get this brace here, and it looks like this could use some tightening from the bottom, so we'll get that here in a second. Now you've got two different sizes. Here, let's get these so you can see them. There's two different sizes. And the long side goes on this side, which is, if you're looking at it from the back, it goes on the right. And that pushes this over enough right here. Let's see if I can get this in here. It moves this over enough to where the drive line shouldn't be allowed to touch it. So we'll put this one in first. Small one. Fish the bolt through it. Like so. Get it through that brace. There we go. Now we can fish the big one in. Beautiful. All tightened down. Let's have a look at that bottom piece. Right here on the brace. That one was a little loose. Yeah. Torque her back down. Now that brace is nice and tight. Top one's good. This is good. Now we're going to go for this piece. So this has got to go on next, and we're just about there. Push this in place, like so. Start the front one. Now with this new design, the back two here, they go down into that new brace that we have. And that one's already hogged out because it was pre-used. So screws go straight in, no issues. There we go. Now the bottom side of that's done. We've got 2 bolts to put in right there. One there and one there. Okay. And that gives you a really strong wheelie bar. Now it may not seem like a lot, but when you put the wing on this thing, look at all the protection you get down here. It's going to hit this before it hits this, and these take a lot of punishment. Before we go any farther, we need to make sure and put these in the right place. I think this one goes on this side. Remember the offset, right? These are offset a little bit so that you can set the stagger. And that's one of those neat little things that they've got going. Some pretty weak plastic, so be real careful if you're going to use one of those to put it together. Okay, so just for clarity, we'll make sure that this fits those. And it does, so they fit neatly through there. So if you take a look, it actually hits those just right. If you switch them, they get narrower. So that's good, they're in the right place. We can put the rest of it together. And of course, tighten them by hand. Beautiful. Last step, as far as the assembly goes, we're going to go ahead and put the wing back on it. Nice. So there it is. It's back together. All I got to do is put the wheels on it and we'll do a little bench test. So in this vehicle, I use the Dumbo RC radio. It's quick, it works really well. Let's get it up. Okay. So this vehicle now, it's capable of 6S just like it's supposed to be. I opted to put the original running gear in it out of the version 4, so it's got the BLX 2050 in it for the motor. I threw some heat fans on it just to keep things cool. It's got the standard 185 for the speed control. I did upgrade the servo. It's got a 35 kilogram servo in it and the Dumbo RC radio. So it performs like the version 4, only a lot more durable. So let's see if this thing revs up like it's supposed to. Okay. So I didn't notice any bugs. I didn't notice any problems with it. Everything seems to turn out really smooth. It runs out like it should. I am totally confident in taking this thing back out and sending it as far as it will go. So let's get the body on it and we'll wrap this up for you people. Okay, so the Kraton EXB is back up and ready to get it. And you'll see this in future videos. You can count on it. It's been interesting playing with this car. I've always wanted to have one of these. I'm really impressed with most of the features. And the stuff that does need repair, it's usually not very serious. Small parts right off the bat can change everything. When you first get your car, change the turnbuckles here, or the outdrive units. Put the aluminum ones on it right off the bat to save on frustration out in the gravel. Also, change the wing mounts and get something to protect the back of the car. I'm not sure if you could actually get one of these front bumpers to fit on the back, and maybe it would go. But as it stands, you need something to help protect this because your cars don't always land right. So I've had a blast doing it. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope that you've found it informative. So for AJ Jam Studios, I'm AJ, and keep them flying, guys.